Here's our first informal meeting amongst ourselves to talk about our jobs and how we're doing things and what's going on. I don't think we even need to take roll since this is just a work session and I see that everybody's here. I can start just because the one thing that's on my mind is I spent the last 4 hours on a Zoom call with the Southern Indian Tribe and CDPHE. It was a productive meeting. I think this was kind of the first time we've had a meeting like this. It was arranged by the Colorado Commission of Indian Affairs, and it was to provide a quote consult between our agencies and the Southern Indian Tribe. I was able to give kind of the normal review of what we've done for the last 2 years, and CDPHE, AQCC kind of gave their update on what they've done the last year and a half or two. We both talked about what we're doing, what this next year looks like. In point of fact, the tribe's interested in monitoring our financial assurance rulemaking. They want to kind of learn from that. And they may want to get some additional information from us about the rules that we've done. And then the tribe also sort of gave a presentation about oil and gas and the development within the exterior boundaries of the reservation. So that's kind of my update in terms of my week so far. And I know we just kind of wanted to maybe go around the room and hear from each other. I know perhaps Priya, you were going to daylight an informational docket that we kind of put together. Do you want to go next?
Sure. Yeah, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, I think we have that to share, and I'll just really quickly for me, I've just been continuing to kind of talk with stakeholders related to financial assurance, among other things, starting to get some plans in order for one of the upcoming informational dockets that I'm going to be helping to lead. And I'll get that list up in just a second. And then I just wanted to mention that I had been involved as a mentor for the Next 100 Colorado, and their efforts are really nicely dovetailed in with DNR's WIG for equity, diversity, and inclusion. And we had a little summit last week that went really well. It wasn't recorded, but there's going to be a summary coming out, and so I'll be sure to share. But I think there's some of the things that we've been talking about that COGCC could do, and even us as commissioners could do, I think will work in nicely. So I'm going to try to get some notes together for everybody sometime soon. Let me share my screen so I can show that item that we talked about. Uh-oh, it looks like I'm not yet enabled. Angelica?
Try it again. Thank you.
Okay. There we go. Okay, can you all see that? Does it look readable, legible enough? Do I need to enlarge it?
Looks good to me.
Looks good.
Okay. All right. So yeah, I think this is just the list of topics that we all as commissioners have come up with in terms of things that either we're interested in to learn more about, or things that are sort of coming up. Of course, we will have an additional financial assurance docket or two, I think, right, Jeff and others, now that we have the more formal sort of request going out sometime soon. Do we have an update on that, by the way?
Director Murphy, you're being called upon. I didn't see it on the website when I looked earlier today.
Thanks. Sorry, I got a little bit lost. What was the question?
The financial assurances informational docket.
I think Angelica.
It is posted, Julie.
Got the question. Yep.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Director. It is under financial assurances. And
Okay, great. Angelica, do you mind putting it on the front page of the website as well as kind of the most recent posting? I think people will be able to find it quicker there. Thanks.
Yes, I'll do that.
And do we have I didn't see that yet. So do we have a time frame on when that I mean, does it also include sort of the hearing date or just more of a time frame for people to get their information in?
The questions themselves are just kind of the questions you put together, and then we're working on getting the actual informational docket open. And I think we internally are circling up tomorrow to get that finalized.
Okay. Great.
When we posted it on the site, did we send like a little note to everyone who's been involved in our mission change rulemaking? Do we have some sort of way to alert folks and let them know that something new might be up that they might be interested in?
Our plan was to do that once the informational docket was open, Commissioner McGowan, to kind of give a single blast of information instead of multiple iterations. So that was, that's been the game plan, and we'll use the varying lists communication lists that we have.
Okay.
Great.
So yeah, that was all just to say that in this list and with kind of some dates that we've tentatively put here for the schedule, we don't have that worked in yet, and it may or may not come before some of these. So I'll just quickly kind of scroll so that folks, anybody watching, can see some of the topics that we have. Nothing, well developed really yet as you get kind of below the gray line, but we're just sort of looking at those as topics of interest. Anybody else want to elaborate further?
Commissioner Messner, do you want to speak a little bit to the work you've done?
Sure. So one of the topics, or perhaps the next topic, is going to be local government land use processes. And so this is one that both Jeff and I are tag teaming. And so two different parts to it. One, I've reached out to different local government lobbying organizations. So Colorado Municipal League, Colorado Counties, Inc., and counties and commissioners acting together as the three local government reps. And so they are more than willing to come together and do a presentation, kind of a high level presentation on, what is local government and what are the, give me a second. So what are the kind of the historical creation of counties and municipalities, different types of local government structure, including, how elected positions are developed and the administration is developed, where and how the different structures of local government receive their authorities, particularly around land use. We'll have some information around local government decision-making processes and the relationships between the different types of local governments. So how municipalities and counties interact with one another, as well as states and special districts. And just give a general high-level overview of how local government functions. And then that should feed into part 2 of the local government informational docket, which is specific local governments presenting on their specific land use processes, and ideally focusing around how they work with oil and gas ultimately. Although it's still interesting to learn a little bit how they deal with other land use processes as well, other land uses, other industrial uses, because I think that does also help inform how oil and gas can be looked at from a land use process in a local government as well. So right now, as far as the timing of that goes, I've got some dates out right now, both the 3rd and the 10th, and I'm hoping to hear back from everyone today, and then we can lock that in.
Great. Thanks, Commissioner Messner. Appreciate that. Commissioner Najapa, did you have any additional follow-up, or other commissioners that are unmuting? Have at it.
I can't see anybody, so I don't know if Commissioner Gonzalez unmuted himself too.
I did unmute myself, Commissioner McGowan. And first of all, can I have a housekeeping matter real quick? Are we going to be calling each other Commissioner in these informal things, or can I call you Karen?
Please call me Karen.
I'm going to. Please call me Bill, everyone.
Yes, thank you. I'm Priya.
Karen, did you have something to add? I'll defer to you until you're done, and I'll chime in after that.
I was just going to talk about kind of my thoughts for meaningful community engagement, and I'd like some feedback from you all in between one of our planning meetings. I was thinking of it in kind of in 3 pieces, and kind of just want to see what you all think. The first piece being maybe a training with a third party who has expertise in meaningful community engagement, like what are best practices, what does it mean, what are definitions, what have been some kind of historic systemic institutions and policies that have prevented meaningful community engagement in the past, as kind of the first part. As part of that thought, though, I think I asked before, I wasn't sure if we had a budget and if I would be able to ask if we could have like a consultant come in and talk to us about that and lead us through that discussion. So I think I need a little feedback, and if you all are open to that. The second piece for me would be then maybe getting presentations from our partners who we work with about what the commission currently does well when we think about meaningful community engagement. I feel like we've gotten some positive feedback about the way that we've been doing things in relation to maybe former commissions, but that maybe we still have some work to be done, and maybe we could get some feedback about some opportunities that exist for the commission for us to do it even better. I would love to hear some presentations from folks who have best practices where they've seen it work well. And then, you know, I think there's kind of a bifurcation, which is how do we do our work, and are we doing it in a way that is meaningful and creates transparency and dialogue? But then I think there's also that piece that we talked about during mission change, where we were saying we want to see that with the commission and operators and local governments as well. And I know that as part of the, and I hope I'm getting this right, so Kyle can correct me if I'm wrong. So I feel like we gave guidance during rulemaking, we gave direction during rulemaking, staff came up with some guidance that was shared during the operators training. I think it might be helpful for us to review that during a commission meeting. What did we come up with? And then talk about as a commission then, now that that guidance is out, you know, what do we mean by that? What are we going to be looking for as we're looking at permits and as we're looking to see if there has been meaningful community engagement? So I'm kind of seeing it in 3 parts, and I would really don't need feedback today, but I would like feedback about that. And I'll put together something for everyone to be able to see and give feedback on.
Karen, can I ask you a question kind of about that third phase?
Mm-hmm.
So is this kind of a look back on what we're seeing in permits in terms of how we're seeing changes under the new rules from operators for community engagement? Or is it more, hey, we did the rules, we have the SBP, we've got the guidance documents, and here's a little more color, maybe some more things for you guys to think about, for operators to think about as we're thinking about implementing the rules, or some hybrid of both those kind of thoughts?
For me, it's more the latter, Bill. Like, I'm not sure that everybody, so I feel like based on, and I'm not trying to just be reactive to something that just happened, but last week there were some comments about our guidance around community engagement, and I'm not sure that everybody really kind of understood why staff had put together some of the suggestions that they did and put it into the guidance. So maybe it would be good for us to kind of review it as a commission with our staff and be really clear about why we think these are important things to have in our guidance. So like you said, you know, what are the expectations? What's new related to the mission changing and the direction that we gave to staff? And then, you know, obviously I think that's going to be something that for future permits that get submitted, we're going to be reviewing that. And so to your point, maybe adding some color and maybe us all having some discussion about, as you know, when this happens, what kinds of things are we going to be looking for? And I'd have to ask Kyle, is that appropriate for us to head in that direction? Did we lose Kyle? Priya, do you mind taking down the screen so I can see everything?
Oh, I don't know. Oh, do you want me to stop sharing? Okay, sure.
Do you mind? Just, it'll help me and I can see everybody then.
No worries.
Kyle?
Well, I think the question is it appropriate to kind of see how the guidance that staff has prepared is working, getting some feedback on that. And certainly that's appropriate. And if the commission thinks that there needs to be some changes or additions to that guidance, I think that's appropriate as well. One suggestion I would make is being cautious about going into the realm of guidance on the guidance. So I would recommend that if there are changes or clarifications to the guidance that are necessary, that those actually be put into the guidance, rather than expecting people to look at the guidance document and then go back and find a commission discussion about it to understand it better. But certainly receiving input in a public meeting about how guidance is working is appropriate.
So given that, I don't know, the timing, how long we want to give folks a chance to see how the guidance is working, or, so that might be, I'm not sure. So I'm open to feedback if that's even what folks want to talk about, but in my mind, that's kind of how it's laid out in my head.
I for one think that's a good way of phasing it out. I think the first part is depending on budget and who we get in or what that third party engagement looks like for that first part. I think that's valuable. And then I think that second part of kind of best practices, what's currently working, what's the feedback around that. Obviously a good second step. And then I think that from those two conversations, we're going to have a lot of more questions and a lot more content to really mold that third part of really what are we looking for in the implementation, as a going concern.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's true of a lot of these informational and educational pieces, right? I mean, the idea of these is to create a uniform baseline of knowledge amongst all of us, right? And then from that uniform baseline of knowledge, then we can move forward with, more questions, more ideas, more thoughts, and kind of build upon these. So.
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I just wanted to add, kind of as an FYI, just to make sure that we're coordinating our agencies, CDPHE and DNR. You may recall I sent out an email a while back about the climate equity framework that's now out for comment. There is a chapter in there for community engagement, and just kind of wanted to flag that for folks, commissioners, and people who are listening in. That chapter on community engagement, it does contain best practices that are very similar to the best practices COGCC staff has put out. So it'll just be something to keep on everyone's radar, making sure that we're being consistent, both of our agencies, in how we talk about those best practices. So just wanted to mention that.
Great, thanks, Sean.
And there were some aspects from this Next 100 coalition, as well as some of the stuff within DNR's broader efforts on community engagement. I think that would also be applicable, and we can kind of pull from all of that. But yeah, I like the way that you have it all framed out that you described, Karen, and I think that sets a good path forward.
So I know that some of you all might want to talk some other pieces that you've been working on. And after that, I have a couple of other things I'd like to put on the table just for people's comments and thoughts.
Why don't you just keep going, Karen?
So not on that list. I've been trying to keep track of what the Air Quality Control Commission has been up to, and their stakeholders did some pretty historic work, I think, to come to consensus on pneumatic controllers and devices. And I was wondering if the commission would be interested in maybe a 20-minute presentation from someone from the AQCC on what was actually adopted. It's I actually thought I understood it, which was impressive on the stakeholders' part, the presentation that they gave, and it just was really good work. And I think it's something that we should all be aware of. And then, Julie, I was wondering if also, and I don't know what the timing is, but I also would be very interested in having CO give us the presentation on the greenhouse gas roadmap, and then the discussion of what is our role for that. How does it, you know, do our sandboxes overlap with the Air Quality Control Commission? Do we have our own slice of heaven that we're supposed to be trying to tackle and helping achieve those goals? So I would be interested in having that I think sooner than later, be in front of the commission. I think that's it for now.
Karen and Sean, I can reach out to Energy Office and see if we can get that queued up in the next couple of weeks. It seems to me it'd probably be good to have that before we have the joint meeting with AQCC.
Agreed.
Okay, I'll reach out to Will now.
That'd be awesome. And I agree with the AQCC 20-minute presentation. I listened into some of the hearing last week on that. And I think it would be great for us to hear that and for our stakeholders to hear it as well.
Yeah, and please let me know if you'd like me to help coordinate that separate presentation on the pneumatic controllers consensus proposal that was just adopted. But I will just flag that we're still working on the agenda for the draft March meeting, and that is one of the topics when the Air Division talks about what they've done so far and where they need to go next on Senate Bill 181. There will be at least a little bit of that discussion dedicated to the pneumatics controllers rule that was just adopted last week. So that will be covered at the March joint meeting. But if you want a bigger, more in-depth conversation about that, please let me know and I can line up the appropriate staff.
I think we probably, and this is just me talking, but I think we probably like a little bigger, more staffed up perspective on that before that hearing, so that when we're at that hearing, we can have a dialogue about it. If that's not asking too much, Sean?
Yeah, I'll check schedules and see when they might be able to do that. Is there would the COGCC want that to occur during a regular Wednesday hearing? Is that what you'd be shooting for? Okay, so in the next
if possible
couple of weeks or so. Okay.
Yeah,
let me reach out to the Air Division and see if they might be available for that.
what else?
Julie, is our joint meeting with the Air Quality Control Commission still in the works? We don't exactly know the date, or did we have a date and I forgot?
I think we scheduled it for the 18th of March. Is that right, Sean? Okay. And so, you know, we're really excited about the agenda, but right now it's like a 7-hour hearing day. So I'm not quite sure how to thread that needle and if it makes sense to like maybe break it into 2 chunks. But that's a conversation that I think Sean and Tricia and I need to have, although if any of you have perspectives about whether you want to do a deep dive over the course of a single day or would rather break it into a couple of sessions, that would be helpful feedback for me.
I think I would prefer 2 days, but I wonder, you know, for us, it's our job. And I know the other commission is volunteer, so I don't know if they have 2 days to give up. Maybe we could get feedback from them if they're open to it.
I think like 2 consecutive days would be very helpful to kind of keep them together. So it's kind of an ongoing conversation. So if that's possible, you know, like Karen said, this is kind of our job. So when it gets scheduled, we're going to be here. But if it's possible, I'd love to have some time to digest as we're going through. So it's not just a, you know, bombardment of information that I don't get all of it. So.
Great. Well, Sean, Tricia, and I will work on schedules and calendars and thoughts.
And Julie, just so I'm clear, did you want me to go ahead and respond to Tricia on that one, or do you want to follow up after this meeting about that?
I'll chime in with her and
okay,
so that you don't have to wear it, right?
Sounds good. Thank you.
So from a schedule perspective, Julie, do you have a preference whether this local government presentation is on the 3rd or the 10th?
That's a great question, Commissioner, or sorry, John. I don't. I think that the question really is for the 5 of you, and as we're continuing to see an uptick in kind of your commission-related work, is trending towards longer hearing days on Wednesdays an okay thing? And if so, the presenters only need to be there for half a day. I mean, or for a couple of hours. So I think we can accommodate all of the above. I don't recall how long the Energy Office's greenhouse gas roadmap presentation was, Sean.
About an hour.
About an hour, yeah. And I'll email Keith now. So my recommendation would be to go ahead and queue it up, and you guys can hold both conversations in your brain and the adjudicatory work, I think so.
And Jeff, from your perspective with part 2 of this, do you want to do those 2 things in one day, or you want to split them up into 2 different days?
I was going to split them up into a couple different days, and I've got outreaches, but I haven't heard back yet.
Okay. Okay.
So probably going toward like the end of March, maybe.
Okay.
Something else that I've been thinking about, and I don't know how many folks have gotten their dunk into the e-file system, e-form, e-file. There's 2 systems, and I had a little bit of a training. And I wonder, as part of our commission hearings, if we just want to remind folks, I know this sounds repetitive, but I think people are going to be confused about, is the information still in the same place? Do I get it in a different way? I think even we were, in my discussions with Jane during my training, I was asking if there's still going to be a commissioner folder, and you'll be able to click on the folder and know, are you just going to see a docket number and then have to go into the filing system and find the docket and then you can see the documents? Or is there still going to be a PDF? And maybe if we could be clear with ourselves about what that's going to look like for people who are trying to figure out what's on the commission's agenda and how to access it, to remind folks how that's going to happen. And then maybe another reminder of how you get into the filing system so you can see stuff. I just think the more we repeat it and the more that we're clear about where things are going to be, it's going to be easier for people to track what it is that we're doing, even for myself maybe. So I wouldn't mind some feedback from you all about that piece too.
Yeah, I still haven't had my official training. I was trying to get into it myself, the e-filing, and I was having some trouble. So I have mine on Wednesday. But I do, yeah, I had some of the same questions. I think it's been really useful to just have the commissioner portfolio, the commission portfolio, but if it's just as easy to get in there and find everything, you know, through the e-filing system, then, you know, I think we can adjust. But I agree with you that, you know, giving a little bit of guidance on where to find that stuff, or if we can have that, even as just a quick 5-minute reminder at the beginning of each hearing for the next, you know, few weeks or something like that, just so that everybody knows where to find stuff. I think that could be useful.
And I've not done my filing yet either. I think it's actually at 3 o'clock today. But to Julie, do you know how much of a workload it is in terms of having the portfolios put together? Because boy, that's awful nice to have to go to one spot as opposed to digging around.
I don't know how much work it is, and I haven't checked in with the hearings team about what their transition plan looks like, if any. I think that the one thing that will be challenging to navigate is that I have recommended internally that when it comes to the documents that are coming into the e-form system for the 2A and the 2B for the OGDP, that those aren't replicated in the e-filing system, and so they probably would not be then replicated in the commission folder itself. And that for me is about data management and making sure we're not storing multiple documents in multiple places, and it creates opportunity for error. So I'm providing context for why I've made this recommendation internally, which is very operational. I think Angelica and I can check in with John about what that vision is, and if there's an intent to make a change or not. But I think that interfacing with e-forms will need to be part of the process for commissioners and the public.
So I don't have any specific thoughts on this because I haven't had my training yet. That's later this week. But you know, I've had it both ways. You know, I've had it where you have to be able to, you know, access your application and all your files from a centralized system, but it was hyperlinked so that you could get there, and then it was all there, and it was really easy to work with. And so that I mean, I totally think that could work if it's, fairly easy to get to and we all know how to do it. I think the key is, in my mind, is making sure that we all have the identical information so that by mistake, one of us doesn't review certain documents that become important in whatever decision making that we're going to be having, right? And so that's the only advantage I see of the portfolio, is that if you do the portfolio, then we all have clearly identical information, so that I don't bring up a topic on page 7 of this 100-page document that we want to discuss, and no one else knew to look at that. You know what I mean?
Well, why don't we all get through our e-filing tutorials, and then let's chat about this next week. And Julie, that might give you a chance to do some digging around too and come up with the right method.
Since we had this meeting today and not last Friday, does everyone still want to meet on Friday?
I do have a doctor's appointment that was scheduled before, and I think originally we had our meeting at 11, and now that it's at 10, I may be either late or calling from the car or something like that. But otherwise, I can still do it.
I'm good not having it this week unless there's something we need to discuss, right? And I mean, these work session meetings, while I think consistently should be scheduled for Fridays, can be called off at any time and then put back on as long as we do 24-hour notice. So
I tend to agree with you, John, and I think that's a good call there, Karen.
So related to that, do we now have this posted as a regular Friday meeting, Julie, so that, and then all we have to do is cancel it if we don't have it?
Commissioner, Karen, I think that, yes, it's really hard for me to switch between hearing Julie and non-hearing Julie. And everybody knows that non-hearing Julie is much more, swears a lot more and also is a lot more informal. I think that, yes, that is a plan to keep that kind of running Friday meeting in the upcoming events on the commission website. And so maybe we just need to add it on Wednesday at the conclusion of our regular business to determine this is or isn't occurring, and that creates a formal process for me, so I don't have to try to remember it every week, because I won't.
And then if I can, oh, go ahead, Priya.
Sorry.
And then,
Go ahead, Sean.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, I'll make my best effort to attend those Friday sessions as my schedule permits. But just a heads up, my schedule is not permitting too much extra these days. So if it does look like a topic on a Friday that's going to be especially interesting to CDPHE, I would just ask Director Murphy or perhaps one of the commissioners or Chair Robbins, if you could just give me a heads up and say this is especially something that CDPHE will want to attend. That would definitely help me with scheduling.
You got it. Looking around, anything else for the good of the cause?
Yeah, Jeff, I've got one more thing. Kind of going back to kind of the next steps on these informational dockets. I wanted to get some feedback from this group on the upcoming, which is going to be following the local government land use process presentation, the process on basically surface operations, the interaction of surface owners, operators, COGCC, and the coordination, the agreements, the consultation, the communication, and just in general, the interaction between kind of those, that triad of interests. And so I plan on reaching out to a handful of operators across the state to really try and get a cross section of different surface owner considerations and how they are working from the operator perspective. I plan on engaging with Greg on staff on kind of, what they're seeing coming in the way of 2As and, a little bit more about their process of looking at that. I'd like, someone to come in and explain, what's an SUA, what are some of the things that surface owners contract for, what are their concerns, how are their existing uses accommodated, how are they compensated or reimbursed in that regard. And it's kind of a sticky subject because in a lot of cases here in Colorado, we have what's called split estate, right? And so the surface owner and mineral owner are different. And so oftentimes the surface owner bears the operational burden of oil and gas extraction and development. And I really want to get a good understanding of that. So I'm gonna be looking for kind of a variety of presenters for that informational docket. And I'm curious if there's anything off the top of y'all's heads that you'd like to throw out there for me to consider early on before we, put together a document to capture all of our questions and concerns. So with that, I'll turn it over to if anyone has anything they want to throw out just to kind of help get me started and make sure that we're swimming in the right direction in this regard.
It seems like you're swimming in the right direction. You've got a ton of stuff on your list already.
Yeah, sometimes that's the problem, Jeff.
So Bill, are you going to cover like different types of surface owners? So I mean, obviously one is the private homeowner, the rancher or whatever, who says, here's where you can do this on my property. I assume that there are going to be instances where maybe it was a home builder and they said, you can do it here in my development, or in some instances, a federal agency or state land board. And I don't know if those differences are hugely important. But I'd be curious to know if if that does make a big difference. I mean, obviously, if it's just someone's private property, the discussion might be different than a different kind of surface.
Yeah, those are great questions, Karen. And I would add to that any kind of lease arrangements that exist where the surface owner themselves may not be the one who is occupying or using the land. So I'm writing those down. Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, for me, it's the whole, everything that you had mentioned, right? But I kind of like I would like to know the whole timeline, right? So, hey, I'm interested in being able to access these minerals. This is first step, second step, third step. These are the steps that I go through. These are the people that I'm contacting. These are the negotiations that need to happen. Blah, 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 because I know it's very different for different situations, but that's really helpful information for me because I understand the big picture, regulatory, pooling, spacing, that element. But from an operator, surface owner, mineral owner perspective, how does that dance start? And then what are the dance steps moving forward? So.
Yeah, agreed. And I think the other piece for me was, sort of thinking about when, the mineral rights and the surface rights are severed, and then how is that handled? Is how and when is the surface owner notified? With those different steps as they go down the path, and even just a little bit of sort of what are their what are their rights? What are their what are the sort of the legal what's the legal backbone, that sort of supports both them and the operators and, all of that kind of going along with it.
Yeah, I think that's all great. I appreciate that, guys. There were some gaps there that I filled in with your comments, so I appreciate that little exercise. I think I will be swimming in the right direction in this regard. For anyone who's listening, the participants, especially from the operators, I may be reaching out to you, or if you're interested in sharing your perspective, please reach out to me independently, and we'll see about getting that squared away in preparation for this. I think we have it scheduled for April 3rd. Looking at the updates on that just occurred, so that's what we'll shoot for.
Yeah. Sorry, I was doing that in real time based on some of the conversation here. So, yeah, and I don't know if I need to share that again on the screen just so that we can all kind of look and see how this is shaping up in terms of the dates. But I'm wondering if we need to, if we should shuffle things around, and given, what we were just talking about with the AQCC hearing topic, and just making sure that we're sort of fitting things in where it makes sense and et cetera. So maybe I'll just quick share the screen again.
And while you're pulling that up, Priya, John, are you anticipating your parts 1 and 2 going back to back?
Sorry, I was finding on mute. No, I think we just talked about that we'll do part 1, either the 3.3 or 3.10, and then part 2, 3.24.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that sounds right. Okay, so then I just pushed down the surface rights. I think we were sort of generally thinking that every couple weeks we would do these informational dockets, right? And so I just want to again make sure with Julie that it makes sense with the other things that are being planned on other hearing days, like the AQCC discussion you were mentioning before. We're not in conflict, right, with any of those? Okay.
I think this looks good, commissioners. The one thing I want us to be thoughtful about is we are starting to get 2As and adjudicatory decision items coming into our workflow. And so in 60 days is kind of when the notice time frame runs, we're going to start to perhaps need more time for adjudications. So when we're starting at that late April, early May phase, I think that's something to keep in mind. And I know we were looking at, I think maybe a financial assurance follow-up on 3.24.
Okay.
So we might want to push that back or put part 2 during the work session, perhaps, for the local government land use processes.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, I don't think there's anything necessary about doing these on Wednesdays, right? I mean, we can do these on Fridays. We can do these on Mondays. I mean, I don't want to get them too crazy, right?
Yeah.
But right now we've got Wednesdays and Fridays. So, I mean, we can certainly push any of these to a Friday to open up space on Wednesday for adjudication stuff.
Okay.
Anything else? Great. Thanks, Priya.
No problem. No, I mean, I don't think I have anything else. Just would echo what we had said in the last hearing, that especially now that we're sharing this list, if people have items that they want to bring to our attention that relate to these topics, to just contact us. And I think we were emphasizing last time, phone and email also works. So.
And email addresses are on the website, so
yes,
we are accessible.
They are, and one thing to clarify on that is that initially we did not put email addresses on the website for fear of folks reaching out in an ex parte context. And I think that we've done enough with everybody that that was probably an unnecessarily cautious approach. So I'm glad that the information's out there, but just wanted to explain what we were thinking about in July when we did not post them.
No problem.
Probably for the better. It's taken us a while to really understand, what we can and can't do from Mr. Davenport in terms of ex parte communication. So I could see myself having gotten in trouble if you didn't protect us in such a way, Julie. Thank you.
All right. Well, I don't think we have anything else at this point. So we're not going to meet Friday. We'll meet Wednesday morning for our regular meeting. And we've got this document, and I am going to go get ready for my training on filings. starts in 10 minutes.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.